I want to jump right to our first guest on the show this morning, who, as always, is on a very time-sensitive schedule. Our 13th District Texas Congressman Mac Thornberry joins me in this segment of the show. Congressman Thornberry, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thanks for the time, Mac. Always appreciate it. I know you're busy. Several things I want to ask you about this morning. Let's begin with the political... The political hot topic of the day, I guess, and that is fuel prices. Gasoline prices, diesel prices continue to rise. Boy, the political campaign is in full force, and it is being tossed back and forth by those on both sides. And in the meantime, the folks are left to pay the price at the pump. What is your take on fuel prices? I hear some blame the big oil companies. They say we're getting screwed on the deal. I hear some people say it's just a fact of a world economy and the supply-demand factors around the world. Some are blaming speculators on Wall Street. Others are blaming Iran and all of the other problems in the Middle East. What's your take on rising fuel costs?
Well, I think there's an element of truth to all of that. The price of oil is a worldwide market based on supply and demand. And speculators get into markets and they bet on whether it's going to go up or go down, depending on what they see and hear. And so all of that has elements of truth in it. But one of the key things you've left out in that list, or what a lot of people leave out, is what the administration has done to oil and natural gas over the past 3 years. And if you think about it, it's not just saying no to the Keystone Pipeline. They have severely restricted our ability to drill and produce oil in federal lands, offshore. They have sent the EPA after drillers and made it more difficult. Every time he turns around, the president threatens to put new taxes on oil and gas companies. And so you add all that stuff together, and obviously they are trying their best to discourage people to use fossil fuels, and the markets pay attention to that. And they say, okay, fossil fuels are going to be more expensive in the future because these folks in the administration are trying to discourage their use. And I think the other key point to be made is that the more we produce energy from here at home or our neighbors like Canada, the less instability there will be in the world. So if we get all our oil from the United States, Canada, and Mexico, it doesn't really matter what happens in Iran to us. It could still affect the worldwide price of oil, but if the biggest consumer of oil, the United States, doesn't have to import oil from the Middle East, that reduces some of the volatility in these prices. And in fact, we've gone the other way. We have discouraged production here at home. And so I really think a lot of it comes back to that.
Yeah, but President Obama and his people are out saying, hey, actually domestic production is up. Actually, we've cut demand by raising the miles per gallon, whatever they call that, the regulations requiring what car manufacturers are going to do with fuel efficiency in vehicles. I mean, they say that those numbers suggest that they have helped this situation and not hurt it.
Demand has been cut because the economy is slowing down and is still rather stagnant. It is absolutely true that oil production off private land is up. That's because of fracking and a whole bunch of new technologies that people are doing in spite of the EPA and the administration. But if you look at oil production where the administration has control, federal lands, offshore, and so forth, it's down sharply. There's something like 30% fewer leases being granted on federal lands now, something like 70% cut in the number of permits for offshore since the administration took office. And so the federal land production is down substantially. What increase there is has been in spite of these people, not because of them.
Fuel efficiency standards, the word that had a mental block on right there. Congressman, one of the biggest name politicians these days really hammering this issue and trying to take advantage of it. Of course, they all are. But Newt Gingrich on the Republican nominee campaign trail talking about if he's the president, he would help get prices to $2.50 a gallon. Your take on that kind of an approach and those kinds of lofty promises? We all hope it would be true if he were to be elected president, but is it legit to step out on that limb, or is it just more politics?
I don't know. I have a hard time, and you know, Newt's a very smart guy. Maybe he's figured all this out. I have a hard time saying you could get gasoline prices to a particular number. But I have no doubt that if the federal government would just get out of the way of the private industry, that we could see tremendously increased production here at home and prices would fall. I can't tell you how much, but I think if you had a change in policy today, that you would see a fall in prices tomorrow, because all of those speculators that we were talking about in the markets are watching what the United States government policy is. And so a different policy would result in some immediate relief even before that increased production comes online.
And so while picking a price per gallon might be a little bit of a stretch, you also disagree with the Obama administration spokespeople that are saying, and of course the president himself is out there a lot right now saying there are no silver bullets. There are no silver bullets. His spokespeople basically are saying there's very little a president can do about oil and fuel prices. You believe that there are steps that could be taken that could dramatically lower the cost of gasoline?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to markets, just like you and I were talking about. They watch and take note of the fact that this president has declared war on fossil fuels of all kinds. And so if there's a different policy, then obviously they would take notice of that too.
What is your take? I mentioned Mr. Gingrich, Congressman. What is your take to this point about the four primary Republican candidates out there? Gingrich, Romney, Santorum, Ron Paul. What's your take on these candidates and the campaign to this point?
Well, as you know, I have not endorsed somebody. I've been watching and listening and wanting to get enthused about somebody all along, just like most people. But as I look at the numbers and as I listen to smart people who have done this, it looks like, you know, Romney already has 40% of the delegates that he needs for nomination. It looks like more than likely he will be the nominee. And at some point before too long, dragging it out is more a matter of ego than it is anything else. And so I don't know. I figure Ron Paul is going to go to the end just to kind of make his point. But for Santorum and Gingrich, at some point before too long, they got to quit beating each other up and focus their ammunition on who the real opponent is.
Of course, early on, several months ago, Gingrich was pressuring Santorum to get out. Now the coin has flipped. Santorum is pressuring Gingrich to get out. Do you believe either or should get out at this point?
Oh, I wouldn't presume to tell them what to do. I mean, you know, they got to figure that out. I just think that we are rapidly coming to the time when continuing is more a matter of ego and beating each other up is just helping President Obama. I don't know, Chris. I've got a theory that anybody who runs for president should probably be disqualified from being president, because you got to do all of this weird stuff from Iowa all the way through, and I'm convinced nobody normal would ever go through all that. So, you know, I'm not very well qualified to tell them when to get in and out. I just believe that the priority has to be to put on the strongest unified face we possibly can, Republicans possibly can, in November to have a chance of winning. Because another 4 years of an attack on fossil fuels, just to name one example, would really, really hurt this country far, far more.
You have not made an endorsement. Does that mean that you won't?
Oh, no, I don't ever, I may, I guess, at some point. But it is a reassuring thing to me to believe that nobody really cares much about my endorsement. People, especially in our area, make their own decisions, and I find that very comforting. And so I'm watching like everybody else. I want the strongest candidate to face President Obama in November. I'm trying to figure out who that is as it goes along, and I think, it's going to become pretty obvious, before too long.
By your definition of conservative, Congressman, who is the most conservative candidate?
I don't know, because I think conservative can be a term that depends on the eye of the beholder. I mean, both Newt and Rick Santorum are conservatives. Romney is much more conservative than President Obama, and on some select issues, maybe even more conservative than the other two guys. So I don't know. I think labels are getting thrown about a little too much these days. The focus has got to be who has the best chance to win in November, I think.
You got 4 copies of the Quran that are evidently accidentally burned. You got Afghan people going ape crazy, killing American soldiers, killing more of their own innocent people. You've got this very unfortunate thing that happens now with an American soldier who obviously lost it, and breaks your heart for his family and, of course, the innocent Afghan victims. But things appear to many to be spiraling in Afghanistan. The question has been asked by many in the media, at least, here in recent weeks since all of this came to light. If it's not just time for us to get out, is this the time? Are these signs, Congressman, that we're not going to change those people over there and we're just going to have to get out and leave them in their own filthy mess?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, you've certainly had 3 very unfortunate and in this last case tragic incidents right after another. The soldiers desecrating the bodies, the stupid mistake of burning the Korans, and then this horrible thing where this guy kills all these women and children. And so, I read a line in some article that said individuals can break down, countries cannot break down. And I think that's true. But also, we've got to evaluate this thing as we go. I've seen polling numbers from just before this soldier went crazy, killing all those people, that showed the United States still very, very popular and appreciated in Afghanistan. That was after, the first 2 things we just talked about. Now, I don't know about what the situation is after this horrible tragedy, but the point is, different from Iraq, they have appreciated the role that we have played there. And remember, the goal is just to get them on their feet enough so that they can prevent the Taliban and Al-Qaeda from taking back over control of that country. We're not trying to make it a perfect place. We're just trying to get enough security there so it doesn't become a safe haven for terrorists to operate from to attack us. But, you got to keep evaluating as events unfold, and I think we're going to have to watch and be careful in the coming days. But
I think many people, and I just get the gut feeling that a growing number of people are looking at it and saying, well, number one, it's incredibly expensive, and the cost of the lives lost, of course, first. Bottom line of the money that it's costing us to be there in light of the budget problems that we have. And whenever we see President Karzai doing some of the things that he's done, we see these people killing innocent people, rioting, burning the American flag because some books were burnt. It has a growing number of people saying, all right then, well then, you wanted your stinking life, then you got it. We're out of here. And to that you say?
Well, number one, take some of the things that are said there and here with a grain of salt. President Karzai says a variety of things for domestic consumption. Secondly, just what would the reaction be here if you had Muslims in our country burn some Bibles accidentally? Now, I don't think we'd have rioting in the streets, but there'd be some people who were pretty upset. And so what we need to do is not react based on emotion like some people there are doing. We have got to just look at what is in the national security interest of the United States. And that's different from saying, being over there to help them do such and such. The question is, what is in our national security interest? And you are absolutely correct about the cost of lives and money, but I would also say it's pretty difficult to put a price tag on the lack of a successful terrorist event in our country since 9/11. And part of that is because we have taken the fight to them over there. And that has a cost. If we didn't do that, and we had more terrorist attacks here at home on the order of 9/11, bigger or smaller, that has a cost too.
You still believe in the worthiness of the fight?
I believe that it is essential we keep the fight to the terrorists going, to keep them ducking over there so they're not plotting and planning to come attack us over here. But again, our goal in Afghanistan, just kind of as it was in Iraq, is get them on their own feet so they can provide their own security, so Al-Qaeda doesn't set up shop there again. And once we are able to get them that good enough, then we don't have to stay.
Congressman, I wanted to visit with you about Iran. I don't think that story is going away anytime soon. We'll have to save it for another day because I know you're on a tight schedule this morning. As always, I appreciate your time, Mac. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Chris. Thank you.
Our 13th District Texas Congressman from Clarendon, Mac Thornberry.